Welcome back to the Chrysalis House YouTube channel. My name is Chrysalis, and today I'm going to be telling you about my story as it relates to my music journey. Ever since I was really little, I displayed a lot of interest in music, and very early on, my parents decided to put me in piano lessons. I believe I was 4 or 5 when I started. I grew up in the country, and so I went to this little country house where a woman taught piano lessons from her home, and that's where I got started. I'm not sure what curriculum I was using, but I remember going into her house with this beautiful, beautiful piano and just loving the journey that I started there. Growing up, I listened to a lot of classic rock because that's what my parents were into, so I used to play Aerosmith CDs. I would also listen to lots of country. I remember playing Alan Jackson albums, shout out Chattahoochee. And I was also into like some poppy stuff. There was lots of variety, so I was really into Britney Spears for a little bit, Hilary Duff, just like a bunch of different stuff. At one point, Shania Twain and Avril Lavigne were really big influences of mine, so I would listen to their CDs. They were both the first 2 concerts that I went to, so that was just wonderful and formative for my experience. But yeah, I wouldn't say there was like any one genre I grew up listening to. It was mostly just this giant mix of music. I remember my mom getting into Nickelback, and I really enjoyed that. I was also a very avid watcher of the Disney Channel, so all of that music also was something that I listened to growing up. I was a big Hannah Montana fan. All throughout my childhood too, I kept playing piano. I wasn't always taught by that one piano teacher. I did eventually move on to a woman who has now passed on, and she was just so wonderful and amazing, and we just had so much fun playing piano, and I had so much fun learning under her because she was never rigid. Like, she was very free. And I remember at one point she was not just offering piano lessons, she did this little choir group where we all got to sing Phantom of the Opera stuff, and she was just always about like, how can we have fun, right? Like, we would play Christmas songs and different holiday stuff. I remember learning like 70s music, 80s music, 60s music, and it was so fun because it kept things really fresh, and I felt like I was so engaged in it. I wasn't just in this like curriculum. And that actually kind of leads me to like my last, I guess, iteration with piano lessons, which happened obviously after she passed, and it happened after she got sick, so it was before she passed, but she was unable to keep teaching, unfortunately. And I was moved into learning under this guy that was like the best piano teacher in our city. And when you're talking technically speaking, absolutely, he was the best that could be hired. This teacher taught the Royal Conservatory of Music, and it was actually him and his wife. I just remembered this as I was sharing, but I started with his wife first because she taught like younger curriculums. And then when I aged up into higher grades of the Royal Conservatory, I went to him. Now, this was at a really interesting time in my life, and all throughout my journey of like doing piano thus far, I had excelled, frankly. I was doing wonderfully. Now, what I will say is this: I was never somebody who could just like hear a song and then go to the piano and play it by ear. I know a lot of people can do that, and frankly, I grew up being a little bit jealous of those people because I always needed to like read my sheet music and practice well. Sight reading was also never one of like my main skills, and if you're unaware what that is, it's just being able to more proficiently play a piece of music upon the first time that you read the sheet music. I was somebody who, with a lot of practice and repetition, did really well. And so there were different like little music festivals in the city that I grew up in. And so I would practice really hard. I would have one piece that I would perfect, and I would play it and I would often go to like whatever the finals were, and I would win scholarships. Now, I've said this online before. I've said I was an award-winning piano player, and that is true. And I have clarified since then, but I want to clarify here. I never meant like I was award-winning in the sense of like getting a university scholarship or anything like that. First off, I didn't play piano long enough. I quit before then. And two, it was just city-wide things for me, but it still meant a lot, you know? I got like $50, $100, and it was just the satisfaction of knowing like I had worked so hard on something and taken the time to perfect it that I got awarded for it. It felt really, really good. As I went further into piano, obviously I just kept progressing and progressing. But once I was with my final teacher, it became so regimented, and I was all of a sudden like, what is happening? So before I tell you about the end of my piano journey, I do just want to like catch us up on other things that were happening during this time. During elementary school, I did what a lot of kids do, which is I played band. Now, most kids, they pick like a horn instrument or a trumpet or a flute, clarinet, whatever. I was the one kid in my school who decided to play percussion, and I'm so glad that I did, because instead of learning one instrument, I was just like in the back, and I got to mess around and have so much fun with like 7 to 10 different instruments. I found snare drum rolls to be probably the most challenging thing out of everything. But the thing that I enjoyed by far the most were the bells or the keys or the xylophone. It was basically like a stand-up piano, right? The keys were the exact same. And so it was like I got to take the piano and move it into this other avenue. And that is another area in which I won scholarships in music, was with the bells and the xylophone. I just loved playing. I remember when I played, and one time in specific when there was like, I think a showcase of the musicians in my city that had won the scholarships or the awards, I literally lost myself in the music. Like I completely blacked out, and before I knew it, I was just like, I was done, and people were applauding, and apparently I did it with no mistakes. So yeah, it was just amazing. It was so much fun. I found that to be slightly easier to sight read, but again, I've never been somebody who was like absolutely able to do things perfect upon sight reading. I was always somebody who needed to sit down, practice, and work really hard to get there, but I did. The unfortunate thing is that despite excelling immensely in band, in percussion, grade 8 came around, and in Canada, I'm not sure if it's the same where you live, but when you finish grade 8, you go to grade 9, and grade 9 is the beginning of high school. So you are most often switching to a different school. Despite having won this award in my school for whatever it was, it's been so many years that I forget the name, but it was basically like best in band. And all these scholarships and loving playing those instruments and being in the music, instead of deciding what high school I was going to go to based on where can I keep doing this thing that I love and am great at, I chose to go to a high school where I ran away from all the people that I went to elementary school with. I was bullied so much in my childhood, and eventually I got so angry and resentful that I started bullying other people back. So it was this vicious cycle where we were all just like vaguely angry and shitty to one another. And when I went to high school, I just wanted to be done. I wanted a fresh restart, but that was not a decision that, 12-year-old me made with my long-term future in mind. I did not realize how that would impact me long-term. Near the end of my piano career, obviously I was no longer playing percussion or whatever in band. I was in high school when I finished my time in piano. And when I was finishing my time in piano, my adoptive mom was really sick and just kept getting more and more sick. Without going too full into detail into that, because it's just a small part of this particular story, my adoptive mom was like my best friend and confidant and just favorite person that I spent time with and around at that time in my life. And despite me putting on this brave face and acting like it wasn't super affecting me that much, like it obviously was, I just didn't feel like communicating that very much to the people in my life. I didn't feel like I had that within me to do. It just manifested in so many different ways. And one of them was, instead of practicing my piano every day and working hard at that and continuing to build my craft, I just dropped off, and I did not have the fucks to give anymore. Like, I couldn't force myself to care. It was a combination of, my best fucking friend is sick and dying, and I don't want to fucking deal with this. This being the other thing of, piano hasn't just been this passion thing for me anymore. It's literally turned into another form of school, where I'm literally studying under this Royal Conservatory of Music thing, which apparently is the best thing for me to be doing because it's the most technical, it's the most this, it's the most that. But I'm not playing my 70s, 80s, 60s music anymore. I'm not learning rock songs that my dad and I get to jam out to together and enjoy listening to as I play. You know, I'm learning all of these classical things, and although I fell in love with playing Chopin, like, shout out, that is my main classical guy, will occasionally just put him on because I enjoy listening to the music. But aside from that, it was so boring and stuffy and dry, and I was like, just with the stress and then that, I was like, you cannot force me to give a fuck. So I actually ended up getting kicked out of piano lessons, because with every single week when I came in, like, you can't hide it. When you're not practicing, your pieces don't get better week after week after week, right? So it was like, I would come in and my teacher would be like, so what did you do this week? And, you know, I would bullshit, but eventually he was like, I cannot teach you and continue to invest my time in you if you are not going to invest that time in yourself. Like, it's a waste of my time, it's a waste of your time. I remember him even telling me that he gave me so much more leeway than he would any other student, because he understood what was happening at home with my mom. But ultimately, it just wasn't worth either of our time, and it wasn't worth my parents wasting their money if I wasn't going to be improving and putting in the time. So I believe when I was 15 or just at the tail end of 14, that's when I stopped playing piano regularly. At the time, I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like, I was just putting on this face. I was like so upset with everything that was happening in life. I was just typical angsty teenager going through something most people define as tragic. And at that time, I definitely defined that as tragic. Like, I was losing my best friend, and God, I was just so mad. Like, I couldn't have cared. And you know, occasionally I would keep playing piano at home. I remember having a Coldplay Viva La Vida album, sheet music book. I also had another Coldplay album, sheet music book. I really enjoy their music. And yeah, I would play that. I would play a couple of other pieces at home, and it kind of just became like, can I continue to do this from a place of just caring about what I like? Can I get the sheet music for the songs I like and play it? I had the Twilight movie soundtrack piano sheet music book, so I would play that occasionally too. But eventually, like, just with all the feelings in my body of grief and anger and resentment and frustration and just like, I could not bring myself to sit down at the piano and play. I just could not do it. Let's backtrack like so many fucking years, okay? Ever since I was like 3 or 4, I had visions of me performing on stages. And during those visions, I was never seeing myself playing the piano, playing percussion, anything like that. I was seeing myself holding a microphone and singing and dancing and performing in front of people and connecting with them. I also saw myself being in music videos. And another thing that I would do growing up, I never had a teacher for this or anything, but I would grab these little Hilroy notebooks, those pastel colored ones, the blue, green, yellow, pink ones, and I would take it with me to school, and I would use it both at home and there, and I would just write lyrics in it. So I've been writing lyrics ever since I was really, really little. And then when I wanted to spend some time just completely by myself when I was at home, I would go on these walks in the country and I would just sing my songs out loud. And there was one that I titled Sunset Road, and I remember feeling so badass walking down like the dirt road as the sun was setting, singing the song Sunset Road. You catch the vibe, you catch the feeling. So I just had these visions of me being in music in some way, even though I was comfortable performing piano in front of people and doing percussion in front of people. Singing is where I froze up really early on. I want to say when I was like 10 years old and younger, I remember I was performing with 2 other girls in my elementary school at like a Christmas show or something. And we were all practicing, and for whatever reason, one single comment that one of these girls made, I chose to let so deeply affect me that I stopped like pursuing any form of singing in front of other people for a long time. And the comment was, "Your singing is like, you do it too musically." And I just remember taking that and choosing to make it such a bad thing to where I decided to shrink myself. I feel like one of the next times that I actually sung in front of people was shortly after my mom passed away, because the interesting thing about that grief or that process for me was she passed away when I was 15, and it was in the first like month of grade 11 in high school. There were these open mics at lunch, and so I decided, fuck it, my mom is dead. I am going to do my best to honor her and give her something to be proud about when it comes to me on the other side. And so I'm gonna do this music thing that I've always had in my head. You know, it doesn't matter, I'm done with piano lessons, I'm gonna fucking do this, and I'm gonna sing, and people are gonna know me, and I'm gonna share that with people. I had my first ever boyfriend, my ex at the time. He performed the guitar for me for the City and Color song, What Makes a Man, which is quite existential for a 15-year-old high school kid, but I felt it, man. I fucking felt those lyrics, and I performed that live at lunch one time. And there was another open mic, but in the evening with my high school, and I played and sang Fix You by Coldplay on the piano, which again, very emotional. Like, I was like so fucking in my feels, but not really letting myself be fully in my feels. And that really leads me to, I want to say, almost pretty much a 12-year hiatus from music for me, all the while having this gnawing knowing almost every single day that I am choosing to avoid the thing that I know I've been meant to be doing ever since I was very, very little. It drove me nuts. Like, I would be living my life, and I would know all the time that I was settling. Like, all the time I would know that I was settling. Even as I started taking more steps towards living the life that I wanted to live, until I started taking action towards music, really, at 29, I knew that I was settling because I still wasn't taking action towards that vision, or so I thought. Every action I took up until then was frankly preparing my nervous system and my soul and every other part of me to be on this path. Regardless though, it was like something I struggled with for a really long time, was just like knowing that this was something I wanted to do, but I could not bring myself to do it. Knowing what I know now about the body and energy and unprocessed emotions, I'm almost fucking certain that I just hadn't cleared enough out of my system yet to be where I'm at now, which is sharing more and more and more and doing more and more and more all the time. The most music stuff I did during that hiatus was singing. I sang a lot more during that time. I remember especially after my mom passed away, I had this beautiful stereo and I would just blast music on it all the time and sing at the top of my lungs. Like, that was a fucking therapy for me. In my teens, I was obsessed with Avenged Sevenfold like crazy. I would just listen to it constantly. Eventually, I got really into singing Mumford & Sons. So the album Babel, that was huge. City and Color. I just was really interested in music that had a ton of fucking feeling behind it. And that's what I found and what resonated with me at the time. Jason Mraz, his Yes album, I really fell in love with that. I would just sing. I would sing. And that dropped off, I want to say, at about the age of 21, which is when I went through like a deep existential time. If you're curious about that, go watch the video on my channel titled My Suicide Attempt Changed My Life. I really did not start taking deliberate action towards making my dream of being a musician come true until I was 29, and it came about in literally the most unexpected way ever. I was painting in my used to be basement apartment, and I was listening to lo-fi hip hop on YouTube. When I was painting and listening to this music, I just started freestyle rapping. And it was like, like this is weird, but it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's just what's happening. And I got this like nudge from my intuition to just like press record as I was doing it. And so I did, and I remember watching it back, and there was just the part that really stuck out to me, and it's the chorus from my debut single, The Newest Testament, where it's, I spit bars just by existing, you spit bars just by living your life. And I was like, I feel like there's something here, but I remember not knowing what. And I was like in the bath, I was in the shower, I would just go about living my life, and I was like, why the fuck is this not leaving my head? I cannot stop thinking about it. And so I rewatched it and I noticed more of it, and I was like, I think there's a song here. And I didn't expect to start my journey with rap music like literally at all. Like, you guys haven't even heard me mention the genre rap in this story, and that's because aside from like listening to fucking Eminem and Chingy, like one single song growing up, like I was not really into rap. I'd listen to like a couple 50 Cent songs, but it was mostly Eminem, and it was like the typical shit that most people listen to when I grew up. But aside from that, I was never really into rap until like the past like 3 or 4 years when I found Queen Herbie. And her music changed my life. I remember when I started listening to it, I was like, this shit is fire. And then I just wanted more music like it, but maybe I haven't found enough artists. But I just remember when I was looking, I was like, why the fuck are there not more rappers who have a message like hers? I was just like, where is the rap with the substance that I'm looking for? I'm just the type of person where I so care deeply about the message in the lyrics, and I'm not really super that interested to listen to music over and over again that doesn't have a message of the things I want to create in my life. I fell in love with Queen Herbie, but aside from that, like I said, I'd never been super big into rap aside from Eminem. When I started writing my first song at 29 as an adult, as rap, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I was just as confused as I'm sure some of you guys are. Like, why is this girl rapping? I don't know. It just happened. Like, it just happened. Didn't expect it, didn't plan it, but I was just like, I'm just going with the current of where my flow is going. That's all I can do. It's either I resist this flow or I just go with it. Because finally, for the first time as an adult, I actually have the motivation and the inspiration to take any step whatsoever towards this journey of being a musician. And so I just did it. I wrote a lot of the lyrics by myself, and then I remember showing them to my wife and her being like, we can tweak this, we can tweak that. And so we actually ended up refining and writing the lyrics together, which was a ton of fun. Although I didn't let it be fun. I was like so stressed about getting it perfect right off the hop. And it was so funny. Like, I remember her being like, can we just have fun? And I was like, I am trying. But the process of like getting back into music really showed me of like, this is exactly why I haven't taken action towards it for so long. I got so used to being good at it when I was young. And as I'm telling you this story, I'm remembering something that I didn't share with you, which was when I was still taking piano lessons when I was younger, I went to this like showcase where my final piano teacher was having all of his students play. And it was during the time when my mom was really sick and I wasn't practicing as much, and I was just so lost. And I remember going up on stage and forgetting everything and knowing that there was a fucking auditorium of people looking at me, waiting for me to play, and I didn't remember fucking shit. And I just walked off the stage crying. It was just so drastic to go from being the person who was so confident, knew my shit, was winning awards in piano and percussion, to being somebody who can't even fucking remember what she's doing, to the point where I'm just like crying and walking off the stage. Like, it was like, wow, what the fuck? And getting back into music as an adult has been so emotional. It's been confronting me with so many things, and ultimately my debut single served so much. It was the doorway to me getting back into the thing that I always wanted to do. And it was also the avenue through which I got to finally just like let go and accept that I'm not perfect at this anymore. I never was perfect. I always needed to work hard to get to that perfection anyways. And I forgot that. But I was never the kid who sight read or could just play by ear. I always needed to practice. And I forgot that when I started this in the winter just a couple months ago. But I'm remembering now, and it's just been such an interesting process getting back into it. And as of today, I've just shared my first singing video with you guys on, Instagram, TikTok, even a YouTube short. And it's interesting. Like, I'm just in this space where it's like, okay, we're taking action toward this dream now. And it started with rap, but now I feel like sharing the singing with you, and I would be totally lying to you if I said I knew exactly where it's going, other than given the experience that I've had in life thus far, given the other gifts I've seen of myself and the skills I've developed thus far, I am an intuitive first and a musician as of right now second. For me, it feels like my mission and my duty to share intuitive messages of empowerment and healing to you through my music. How that will manifest, I have no idea. But this is my story thus far. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. As of right now, the genres of music that I listen to most are probably indie and pop. I am actually a pretty big Taylor Swift fan. I was really interested in the Eras tour when it was going on. I love her newer stuff, basically from like folklore onwards. Her lyricism and emotion is phenomenal, and the music that I find that just gets me so in my body is mostly acoustic, ambient, indie music. I personally would love to see my music go somewhere in that direction, but I've also been informed by my intuition that I'm not here to conform to any genre. I'm very much here to just do what comes through me as a channel, as a vessel. Like I said, I didn't plan to rap, so who knows what's gonna happen from here. Thank you for being here. My name is Chrysalis, and I will see you next time.